Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy, Nipsey, coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today on the channel. So I wanted to go over this very dope artist that I have right here, a full mix breakdown that I have right here, how to mix J. Cole type rap vocals. J. Cole, he's one of the best rappers of all time, and I really like this artist right here because he actually, was able to get some of that lyrical vibe, that really saying something that gets your brain working, and as well as make your body feel good, get your ears, listening to some good music. So shout out to this dope artist. I'm gonna drop his Instagram and everything down below. If you guys do have any more comments or suggestions, drop it down below. I'm more than happy to get to it. So this is gonna be like a new thing I'm doing where I'm just gonna be showing you full mix breakdowns going into the jams. So let's not waste no time. Okay, let's not waste no time. Let's get right into this song. Let's get to it right now. Okay, let's go.
I be too focused on the shit that matters. Family, money, outlet.
People telling me many different things, but I don't listen. Really, I just be thinking they be wanting my position. It's true, cause when you blessed, they rather see you be without. And stressing is a thing that I refuse to speak about. When you dealing with some shit, you by yourself, and that's the problem. But let them wear the shoe and watch the table start revolving. Then you can see yourself and other people you confuse. The ones that you be wanting to see win, want you to lose. I throw you off with talking, but it's often that it happens. Them be the people that you gotta watch, they be capping. Won't beat around the bush, I'd rather kick the news. City selective with the love, they rather pick and choose. But see, you only get a few to catch the vibe, and that be normal. Ain't messy, I be staying out people way and keep it cordial. You put it past a person, then you play the fool. I can't relate to nothing fake, they try to make it cool. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they tell.
Okay, so very dope, very dope. Let's get into it right away. So usually when I'm doing a mix like this, what's my mindset? When you're approaching a mix, you always got to think before you do. That's something that you have to start learning, how to listen to the music and let it talk to you. I keep constantly saying it because it's a very important thing. So usually when I start off with my mixes, I like to, get the beat leveled. So this has something to do with the gain staging, usually just kind of like your starting point. Gain staging is not something you should be overthinking. All you got to know is that these YouTube beats come in loud as hell, but shout out to all the YouTube producers doing that. You got to make your beats loud because that's what gets people in the mood and the vibe. But, when it comes to a mixing situation, we got to pull it back. So usually what I do when I have my 2-track beat on all of my Studio Rack presets, I have the beat leveler for you guys here, okay? And I usually use the input trim. I trim it back a little bit, and I usually have it hit somewhere around like 0 on a VU meter, so you'll see right here.
I be too focused on the shit that matters. Family.
Does it have to be perfect? No, it doesn't have to be perfect, but usually I like it to hover around 0 because that's just a starting place for me. I would tell you that usually pulling out the VU meter and hitting 0 is probably the best thing to do when you're using Waves plugins and these analog modeled plugins because that's what they're calibrated for. Okay, so yeah, that's how I usually do most of my mixes. I start off with it, the stock preset is already on 18 and I hit 0. So after that, we had something like the NLS channel, and just using that to just give a little bit more weight to the beat, just to add a little bit more size to the beat. Sometimes you download a beat from YouTube, it loses a little bit of quality, it loses a little fidelity. So I use something like the NLS channel to bring in a little bit of size, a little bit of saturation on the 2-tracker. So let's listen to it with and without. Let's go, come on.
Cause they tell them people ain't your people, they switch if you don't help. Ain't never in they business, I be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they tell them people ain't your people, they switch if you don't help. Ain't never in they business, I be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. Ain't many people living with a purpose, you can tell. They greed, that's why I like to stay up in my shell. They wishing I fall off, but never wish a nigga will.
So usually, in a situation like this, I usually try a bunch of different saturators. I try like something like the NLS channel. I might try the Mac DSP, AC202. I might try a bunch of different things just to see what's going to really help the beat. You don't always put the same type of seasoning on the chicken depending on what day it is or how your stomach is feeling. You might be craving a different flavor. So that's kind of the same perspective that I bring to music. I don't ever set my mind, and you should never set your mind on just, oh yeah, I got to use that every time. So I heard the NLS channel with the spike, and it just kind of helped with the stereo imaging. You know, it kind of made the beat feel a little bit wider. You can start to hear the hey, because that's what that console emulation is doing, kind of adding a little bit of saturation, add a little bit of overtones to the 2-track beat itself. So now you can hear everything a little bit better. So now I'm not trying to push up the beat, trying to make it louder because I don't hear stuff. Use a little bit of saturation, okay? And then with something like the intro, you know, I use something like the lo-fi to bring the fidelity down, understanding this is like a throwback type of song with a sample. So usually when I hear a sample, I say, okay, you know, I might just want to make a certain part of the vocal kind of related to it. So even though it might not be a close brother, it could still be the cousin, you feel me? So listen to the ad-libs, how, you know, I used a little bit of lo-fi to, you know, make it a little bit more shit, a little bit more crap, you know? Not everything has to be super clean and super pretty. He's talking about mind in mind, you know, sometimes you gotta mind your own business, sometimes you gotta keep it real, and that's what he been doing this whole entire song. So even with the ad-libs, let's pay attention to that real quick.
They say the key to living long is to mind your business. I guess that's why I be minding mine. I be too focused on the shit that matters. You know? Family. Money, outlet. People telling me many different.
And you got to understand what contrast is in making music, right? So I was giving them something very, very dark in the beginning, right? So that once that brightness of the actual lead vocal comes through, they're like, wow, they have a point of reference. You know, if I would have just kept it to be bright and crystal like the whole time, you know, like bright, kind of like how the rest of the lead vocal is, it wouldn't really have like too much of the same impact as when those first words start coming in. It actually feels like his vocal sounds like a little bit of like a glass, really very clear, very mainstream type of thing. So I'm still keeping the vibe by making the intro lo-fi and kind of cruddy and everything like that. But then when the lead vocal comes through, it starts to sound mainstream, it starts to sound clear and very just presentable. And now he talking about, you know, his life and everything like that. And usually with a lyrical rapper, that's what I'm going for, because they're actually saying something in their music. I want you to hear the articulation. I want you to understand the nuances of what they're saying and everything like that. And yeah, we have a F6 as well, which is a side chain to like the you know, the lead vocal. This actually came into the this actually came with the you know, instrumental. This actually came with the session already, but I really like it too because it kind of like ducks down the beat when the intro comes in. Listen real quick.
They say the key to living long is to mind your business. I guess that's why I be minding mine. I be too focused on the shit that matters. You know? Family.
Yeah, so the only thing I did is when I went in there, I actually like started to adjust the release and everything. So yeah, you just hear that every time the vocal come through, like the beat is kind of ducking a little bit. So yeah, okay, next thing, let's go into the actual lead vocal itself, because this might just be a long video. So yeah, I started off with my original J. Cole preset, but you know, I kept going. I made it custom tailored for him. And that's the thing about all of my presets, you know, like I try to say, every song is different, every situation is different. So even though you get a preset from me, you got to still keep improving upon it. So let's pay attention to it really quickly, the whole thing with and without.
They be capping, won't beat around the bush, I'd rather kick the news. City selective with the love, they rather pick and choose. They do. You only get a few to catch the vibe and that be normal. Ain't messy, I'll be staying out people way and keep it cordial. You put it past a person, then you play the fool. I can't relate to nothing fake, they try to make it cool. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell them. Them people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in they business, I be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. It's best to keep your secrets.
All right, so you guys get the overall message. I don't want this video to be too long. All right, understanding J. Cole's sound. I looked at J. Cole's actual chain that he uses, and J. Cole usually uses something like a Neve, you know, EQ and a preamp and everything like that. So I said, okay, cool. If J. Cole uses a Neve 1073, let me find the closest plugin that isn't gonna break the bank. And look, we have the Waves Vintage EQ. So with something like a J. Cole vocal, you know, you know, a J. Cole type of vocal, you know, I like to get the lows in control, and I also did a little bit of presence boost, just so you can kind of like pay attention to the lyrics of the artist and everything like that. Just a small dabble, okay? So let's listen to with it, with and without.
You be without. And stressing is a thing that I refuse to speak about. When you dealing with some shit, you by yourself, and that's the problem. But let them wear the shoe and watch the table start revolving. Then you can see yourself in other people you confuse. The ones that you be wanting to see win, want you to lose. I throw you off with talking, but it's often that it happens. Them be the people that you gotta watch, they be capping. Won't beat around the bush, I'd rather kick the news. City selective.
So yeah, you know, always understanding like the tonal seesaw, like your ears work like a seesaw, right? So it's like the fat boys on one side, right? That's like the lows of the vocal, and then the skinny boys on the other side of the seesaw, but the seesaw is balanced out. So as soon as I take out like a little bit of the lows, right, it will kind of make the skinny boy rise up a little bit. So that's kind of how like your ears work and everything like that. So most important with this VEQ, what I used it for is mostly like the tone, the actual like the way it sounds like a Neve. It kind of gives a smooth, creamy type of vintage vibe to his vocal. All right, then after that, of course, I use something like a LA2A. So, you know, if you want to get a smooth type of vocal, sometimes it's the EQ, it's the compression that you pick. It's a bunch of different things that will contribute to the actual sound like that. So let's look at how hard I was pushing this LA2A.
To speak about when you dealing with some shit, you by yourself, and that's the problem. But let them wear the shoe and watch the table start revolving. Then you can see yourself in other people you confuse. The ones that you be wanting to see win, want you to lose. I throw you off with talking, but it's often that it happens. Them be the people that you gotta watch, they be capping. Won't beat around the bush, I'd rather kick the news. City selective with the love, they with the love.
All right, cool. So then I kind of did a counter move with the LA2A. I picked the compressor, right? That is smooth, but look, pay attention to what I'm using. You know, I'm not using the compress function. I'm using the limit function, which kind of makes it sound a little bit more abrupt. So even though that it's smooth, I'm still adding a talking, let it beat. You know, it's kind of helped bringing out a little bit of more of the impact of his words. So like I'm saying, you know, I'm listening to the music, and I also really push the output gain really, really hard, because I understand the LA2A is giving a little bit of that tube amplification circuit. So, you know, it's also giving a little bit of body, a little bit of size to his vocal, because I want the vocal to be very big. You know, you usually got to pay attention to like the arrangement and everything. And his background vocals are kind of sparse. Like even though he's got a lot of background vocals, as I'm listening to this mix and everything, I'm paying attention. I'm just understanding like, yo, you know, the lead vocal has to be predominantly big for the most part, because the, you know, the little brother background vocals, they ain't gonna give me a helping hand like that all the time. So yeah, after that we had something like the C4, and I have a preset which is a 90s lo-fi multiband. I think I made this preset just for this song.
You be without. And stressing is a thing that I refuse to speak about. When you dealing with some shit, you by yourself, and that's the problem. But let them wear the shoe and watch the table start revolving. Then you can see yourself in other people you confuse. The ones that you be wanting to see win, want you to lose. I throw you off with talking, but it's often that it happens. Them be the people that you gotta watch, they be capping. Won't beat around the bush, I'd rather kick the news. City selective with the love, they rather pick and shoot.
So I just kind of use something like this C4 multiband to really get the vocal to sound sturdy and like focused in your place, because it's kind of like the way he was rapping. It kind of sounded like a little bit like you know, in the context of the beat, the way the beat is moving and his vocal is moving, it kind of started to sound a little bit wobbly. So I used the C4 to really just clamp down on it, kind of like taking a hammer, right? Taking a hammer and putting the vocal on it and kind of nailing it down to the beat a little bit, you know. So after that we had something like the Puig Child 670, putting that, you know, that tube sound, and I'm pushing the output so hard. So that's how I'm getting these smooth vocals. I'm getting a lot of that saturation, a lot of that tone, a lot of that soulfulness, a lot of that drippiness from this. And I think I was compressing pretty aggressively, but let's look at this really quickly.
You be without. And stressing is a thing that I refuse to speak about. When you dealing with some shit, you by yourself, and that's the problem. But let them wear the shoe and watch the table start revolving. Then you can see yourself in other people you confuse. The ones that you be wanting to see win, want you to lose.
So yeah, as you guys can see right here, just mostly pushing that input gain, getting some more of that tube saturation. So that's how you can also, you know, put yourself in a situation to win, you know, using those analog model plugins strategically to actually smoothen out the vocal for you. And you see, I'm pushing a lot of the output, I'm pushing a lot of the gain. And I use the time constant 6, which actually has like a multi-stage release. So I kind of like that for a rap vocal like this, where he's changing up his flow a lot, because it can react to the material better versus where like, you know, some of these other fixed time constants, I kind of feel like they might be lacking or not as responsive. So that's something to always know about compression, is like picking the most responsive one. And then after that, I think we had this little REQ just kind of like, you know, giving us a little bit of tone.
If you don't help, ain't never in they business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell you. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in they business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. Ain't many people living with a purpose, you can tell. They greed, that's why I like to stay up in my shell. They wishing I fall off, but never wish a nigga well. That's common from the people that be wishing that you fail. Ain't been the one for time.
All right, so I'm just pretty much using this high pass filter to slide that lead vocal back in the beat, you know, pushing this a little bit right here to get some presence, you know, from the high mid, kind of like that transient, kind of like the cuts, you know, a lot of like the impact of his words, just trying to bring that out, and just using the high shelf just to, you know, push a little bit of that air and everything like that, because I don't want the vocals to sound too smooth. Then I use something like a J37 tape on his lead vocal as well, and I usually love using this preset. I use the 15 IPS, kind of like to just keep it neutral, that has the flattest response, as well as the 811, so let's check out that real quick.
You be without. And stressing is the thing that I refuse to speak about. When you dealing with some shit you by yourself, and that's the problem. But let them wear the shoe and watch the table start revolving. Then you can see yourself and other people you confuse. The ones that you be wanting.
All right, yeah, so I just love using something like the tape, and sometimes tape does have a bump, so it's kind of convenient to roll off a little bit of like, you know, the lows, so I did that with the filter and everything like that. Okay, so then after that, nothing really special. I used the Abbey Road plate. I really liked it because he was going for a vintage sound. I used the vintage reverb. Oh wow, what a coincidence. Yeah, the music was talking to me and telling me that. And then after that, I used something like the Puig Child 660, you know, on parallel compression, just like kind of crushing the vocal a little bit.
Cause they'll tell you. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in they business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell you. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in they business, I'll be minding mine.
And of course, you know, I'm understanding that he is kind of rapping slow. Look at that needle, look at that needle, look at the needle. Okay, so when you're doing parallel compression, you gotta understand compression in general is the responsiveness. I know he's rapping slow, so I was able to use something like the 660 and pin it down so far down, knowing got a slow release time, because hey, you know, it was giving a little bit of that body, a little bit of that presence, a little bit of that sturdiness and focus for his vocal. Okay, cool, let's run through this. So yeah, this is a full mix breakdown. I mean, I could sit here and do this for hours, which is why I don't understand why people make videos like that are like shorts, and they do that all the time, and they make like 5 minutes. I don't understand, because it takes you like forever to make music. So yeah, I think this is like this is the background vocal bus, and this was a lot of the stuff that he already had. I would say the only important thing here is just the SSL channel strip that I put in there. You know, I use one of my typical tricks of just rolling off for the lows, rolling off a little top, boosting a little bit of presence, and cutting off mostly the mid-range, compressing a little bit. And yeah, after that we had something like a soothe right here that was just kind of compensating for any little bit of spikiness and everything like that. So listen.
Cool. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell you. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in they business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell you. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in they business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. Ain't many people living with a purpose, you can tell. They greed, that's why I like to stay up in my shell. They wishing I fall off, but never wish a nigga well. That's coming from the.
So I like the soothe a lot because it's actually kind of really helping blend the background vocals in a little bit better. You know, that high mid energy usually as well, like that transient energy will tell the human ear about distance. So that's something to also be aware of. You know, I'm attacking that high mid. I could have even went down to the lows, but I really kind of took care of that with all of the other processing I did. Most important thing with the soothe too is listening to the background vocals. They tell them. It's switch up, understanding that most of his background vocals was the consonants. It was the words with the T. It was the words that have the high mid energy, and understanding that, okay, I need to go in there with the soothe to, you know, pretty much smooth it out, even it out, so everything can blend a little bit better. Okay, so let's keep running through this. After that, you had something like the ad-libs, which I used another lo-fi here, but I only used the distortion right there just to give it a little bit more exciting. They'll tell them, you know what I mean, like that. So after that, with my ad-lib chain too, the simplest stuff, just the basic EQ or REQ using 1176 on all buttons in mode. So I think that's something interesting to talk about.
And keep it cordial. You put it past a person, then you play the fool. I can't relate to nothing fake, they try to make it cool. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell you. Them people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in their business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. It's best to keep.
Yeah, so actually, I was wrong. I didn't use it to actually compress it all. I only put it on the all buttons in mode because it actually gives a different type of saturation. So when you put it on the all buttons in mode, it actually changes like the bias current, like which is like the electricity inside of the 1176. So that actually gives you like a different type of seasoning, a different type of salt and pepper. So that's the only reason why I actually did that, So, it's not compressing at all. But then I had the RVOCs to give it a little bit of body, a little bit of meat and everything like that. And yeah, from my effects, we had a basic, Valhalla vintage reverb, going into some of the Avid, the stock Pro Tools filters. And I like the stock Pro Tools filters a little bit more because they are actually a little bit grittier. Like they actually have a different sound from the regular stock EQ7. So you got to understand your tools to understand what type of flavors or what type of advantages they could give you for the music. And then after that, I had the H delay working, and I had like an eighth note, and I think that was only for just the ends, just to help them become a little bit wider. So pay attention, even though the actual ends themselves are pan like 73, the delay is pan 100. So I have the, I call it the widest boundary theory. It's something I created myself. Whenever I mix a song, I hear like, what is the widest element? And then from there, I don't go past that element, So it's like I'm building my house. And when you build your house, you put the walls right there and you say, okay, I'm not going to put any more tile or any more furniture on the other side of this wall because this is the boundaries for my house. So I see making music like that. So to jump back through to the ad-libs real quick, I actually had this stock Pro Tools preset. I love using stock plugins. I love just using stock plugins a lot. And this is a stock plugin for Pro Tools, and I use the width, which is 151, and it really just helped push the ad-libs a little bit wider and everything.
Keep it cordial. You put it past a person, then you play the fool. I can't relate to nothing fake, they try to make it cool. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell you. Them people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in their business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time.
So as I'm trying to position these ad-libs, you gotta pay attention to the beat. That's on the left-hand side, so that's why I put the ad-libs on the right-hand side. So that's the little stuff that you can use to like actually like make space inside of your music. Just listening to the goddamn beat and understanding that, a lot of activity is over there. The hi-hat, the is on the left-hand side, so I'm gonna put the ad-libs on the right-hand side to fill up that living room that I kind of got going on right now, that kitchen. I'm gonna put the chairs over here on this side because there's nothing over there on that side. That side is kind of sparse a little bit. So that's kind of how I see making music. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to talk about too is the studio rack mastering chain that I built. So I built this whole thing from scratch. So I originally used the UAD ATR 102, and let's also just look at that really quickly. So yeah, I kind of just booted it up, and I picked from a bunch of different tape formulas, but because I don't have that plugin right now, I haven't purchased the full thing. I'm waiting for it to go on sale. I use the Kramer master tape to substitute, but it still sounds just as good. So that's what I always try to tell you guys. If you don't have one plugin, it doesn't fucking matter, because the plugins never mattered. What matters is that you actually like making music, that you actually are enjoying yourself while you're doing the process, and that love and that enjoyment will start to bleed into the mix. That's why the music starts to sound good and starts to sound the way it does. So I used the Kramer master tape, and this was doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I like to start with the master tape when I'm mixing a type of song like this specifically, okay? Because it's gonna add a little bit of saturation to like the top of the mix, right? So then it's kind of like a situation where if somebody was invisible, right? Like let's say if the reverb or the delay was like an invisible superhero and I threw a little bit of dirt on it and it's starting to walk around, I can start to track it. So what I'm trying to say is I like to put the tape in the very beginning so I can start to hear a little bit of the reverb a little bit better. I'm adding more saturation to the top end of the whole mix. So because I'm doing that, I can use less reverb and less delay because it's becoming more apparent, more listenable for you, right? So the main thing about me is that I like to use the least amount of reverb that I can, because the less reverb that you use, it makes the mix sound a little bit more dense. The more reverb that you do use, it will start to wash away the mix and make it sound a little bit more faint. So that's something to also pay attention to. So let's listen.
And keep it cordial. You put it past a person, then you play the fool. I can't relate to nothing fake, they try to make it cool. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell it. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in their business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell it. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in their business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time.
So just starting with something like tape, you hear how it brings in that roof from the house, like without the tape, it sounds like a hurricane hit the mix, right? And now the hurricane has literally it kind of sounds shallow. It kind of sounds like in a box. It kind of sounds like a turtle that's creeped into a shell. But once I bring on the tape, you start to hear the roof. You start to hear the whole top end of the mix. So I started with the preset clean and open, a mastering preset, and I just kept working from there. And it's good to start with the tape because now you don't have to make your lead vocal so bright, which will bring out the harshness if you start to boost it with EQ and stuff like that. You can just use a little bit of tape saturation on the whole mix and then start to work from top to the bottom, tone it down rather than be starting from the ground and trying to build it up. So that's how I see it. And then I use the NLS bus and I used it on mic as well, which is kind of like a bright kind of console emulation.
And keep it cordial. You put it past a person, then you play the fool. I can't relate to nothing fake, they try to make it cool. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell it. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in their business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell it. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in their business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. Ain't many people living with a purpose, you can tell. They greed, that's why I like to stay up in my shell. They wishing I fall off, but never wish a nigga will. That's common from the people that be wishing that.
So I just love using something like this, just hitting it pretty hard, just helping reposition the whole mix, because as you can hear, without it, it's kind of like the whole balancing of the mix changes completely. And I like how a constant emulation is just really working on that transient information, just kind of smoothing out the kick as well as the snare, kind of like, I would dare say, even soft clipping it a little bit. After that, I use the 670, understanding it's a throwback retro type of song and everything like that. And then, we was just bumping and grooving. I know the mix had a boom, 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 boom. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as I heard the bass line, I already knew what type of mix bus compressor I was supposed to use. You got to let the music talk to you, especially when it's like a J. Cole type of song, The music already told me I got to use the 670 because, just the way it's going to be bumping and grooving, that tube type of sound is really going to help it out. So let's listen to this too. And I was pushing it a little bit more too, just really helping the whole mix just get juiced up.
The news, city selective with the love, they rather pick and choose. But see, you only get a few to catch the vibe. And that be normal. Ain't messy, I'll be staying out people way and keep it cordial. You put it past a person, then you play the fool. I can't relate to nothing fake, they try to make it cool. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell it. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in their business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they'll tell it. The people ain't your people, they'll switch if you don't help. Ain't never in their business, I'll be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time. Ain't many people People living with a purpose, you can tell. They creep, that's why I like to stay up in my shell. They wishing I fall out for never.
So usually with a 2-track beat, the loudest element is going to be the goddamn bass. It's gonna be the 808. We love basses and kicks that hit hard. But sometimes, you know, you get a certain type of beat with the vocal and everything like that, and it's like you can't control the 808, you can't control the kick because it's a 2-track beat. And that's where I came in with the bus compressor, you know, just understanding that the 808, the bass line was gonna be driving that bus compressor and using that 670 to help push the bass a little bit back and become a little bit more solid. Because before it was kind of like up front in your face and very loose and very wild, like a shoelace, like a shoe with no strings in it. It was kind of wild all over the place. So I didn't like it. That's why I hit it with the 670. And then after that, you know, we used something like the pull tech. And I think with the pull tech, I don't think I was boosting anything. Yeah, I just let it run through just to make the mix a little bit more heavier. So using the analog components to beef up the whole mix a little bit more.
The news, city selective with the love, they rather pick and choose. But see, you only get a few to catch the vibe, and that be normal. Ain't messy, I be standing out people way and keep it cordial. You put it past a person, then you play the fool. I can't relate to nothing fake, they try to make it cool. It's best to keep your secrets to yourself, cause they a tell you. The people ain't your people, they a switch if you don't help. Ain't never in they business, I be minding mine. That shit be crazy, I don't know how people find the time.
So yeah, you know, just kind of really being smart about it, understanding I was compressing the like, you know, pretty heavy with the you know, the mix bus compressor before, and like I said, the 808 was so loose, so I wanted to tighten it up and make it a little bit more dense and a little bit more smaller, but then I brought it back with the pull tech. So, you know, you got to kind of do moves like that, going back and forth and everything like that. And the last thing, I slapped on a crazy L2 limiter to make it, you know, loud pretty much. And yeah, that's the end of this video that I have today. You know, like I always try to tell you guys, you know, like mixing, that shit takes time, bro. So it's going to be damn near impossible to explain everything like, you know, 10-minute video like how other people try to do. So I'm actually trying to give you like everything here. I try to touch everything, literally everything that I did on this mix, I touched it, you know, I talked about it pretty much. So yeah, that's the end of the video that I have here for today. And if you guys are interested in seeing any more full mix breakdowns like this, let me know down below. I'm more than happy to get to it. It does take a while. These are going to be some long videos, but I was really happy I was able to give you guys some of the information so you can see how I go about doing this, how I develop the mix, how I develop the master bus, how I develop, you know, the 2-track beat and the background vocals and making everything work all together. So I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.